It's now kind of common to see television reality shows based solely on the drama and dark secrets that one family produces. A great example of such television shows is Keeping Up with the Kardashians, as the show is the best example that drama sells, and it does so really well.
But you act like I don't do shit. Do you know all you have this narrative in your mind? No, I will literally you up.
But before the Kardashians and many other television families like them, there was the Teutuls. While people came to watch the American Chopper because of the choppers themselves, a lot of people stayed for the pure chaotic drama and dark family secrets.
And don't bother coming in tomorrow because you're permanent.
And for a while, that winning formula worked. The family would fix choppers up for people who like that sort of thing, and the testy family dynamics of the Teutuls would be entertainment for people who cared about the drama. This formula worked for around 7 years and spurred around 165 episodes of primetime television. However, it couldn't work forever. The drama eventually got to a head and led to the end of the series. However, even at the end of the show, the Teutuls still found ways to amuse us and stay in the limelight. They did this through court dramas, spin-off shows, and even spin-off episodes. But no show is that successful without a few secret baggage of its own. Perhaps these secrets were the reason the American Chopper was so successful. In any case, we're going to find that out today because we'll be going through the darkest secrets about the Teutuls. Get ready because this is going to be one bumpy ride. The main pressure of the Teutuls drama is the tension between the senior Teutul and the junior one. When the show was first starting, everyone expected a clash of generations. It didn't come as a surprise to the camera crew when older and younger Teutul began to clash on set. But in the beginning, it was all a part of the allure of the show. It was controlled chaos. However, that chaos became uncontrollable a few years later. It got so uncontrollable that the older Teutul made sure that he wasn't available for his son's wedding. Imagine how terrible the situation between both men must have deteriorated for the senior Teutul to avoid his own son's wedding. What makes it even worse is that Teutul Sr. was invited to the wedding and was fully expected to be the father of the groom. However, the man decided to ignore the invitation and do his own thing. When Paul Jr. was interviewed about the disappointment of his father not attending his wedding, he said that it's always sad when someone's father doesn't come to their own son's wedding, but he also said that he still loves his dad. However, he said that the wedding was perfect and he wouldn't have changed anything on that day. Yeah, we think that there's a lot of bad blood there. We mean, saying that you wouldn't change anything about your wedding day, especially when your dad didn't attend, is kind of saying that you didn't want him there anyway, isn't it? But it gets worse. In 2017, Paul Jr. published an op-ed where he frankly spoke about his feelings with his father, and in that article, he argued that his father firing him might be the best thing to have ever happened to him. This certainly shows that both father and son have not been on great terms for a long while, and that Paul Jr. certainly feels some level of resentment for his dad. Perhaps that's what Paul Sr. saw and decided that the wedding wasn't for him. Did you also know that there was almost a web series for the American Chopper? That's right. After the show ended in 2010, both Teutul Sr. and Jr. tried their hands at other stuff. Unfortunately for them, their ventures didn't quite pan out. To solve this problem and the impending financial wreckage that was coming their way, both father and son decided to open a Patreon page to crowdfund for a web series. To their credit, they were pretty upfront and quite honest about why they wanted to continue the show. It was simply the best way to heal their bleeding finances. Sadly, that move never really got actualized. Right now, the Teutuls don't have a web series in the pipeline and it's likely they'll never have one. Did you know that the American Chopper owned a game franchise? Well, if you didn't, you're not alone. A lot of people don't know this, but in the 2000s, 2 American Chopper video games were released. One of them, released by Activision, was simply titled American Chopper. The second title, American Chopper 2 Full Throttle, was produced by Create Studios. We don't know how successful this game was, or whether it was even enjoyable to play and all that. However, it's certainly remarkable, and probably evidence of the immense popularity of American Choppers, that a reality TV show could have its game franchise. And now, for a slightly bigger secret, it may not surprise a few people who know how these things work, but all three Teutls have had problems with addiction. According to Paul, the eldest Teutul, he has tried every single drug under the sun when he was younger. Paul Jr., on the other hand, also struggles with addiction and has reportedly had some success in dealing with it. All of the Teutul boys once struggled with substance addiction. While that is certainly quite sad, it's surely one of the reasons why the show was so successful. The show needed a family that was close enough to work together, but still holding on to years of enough trauma to make working together a drama-infused exercise, and the Teutuls were perfect for that. After the end of the show in 2010, everyone believed that the Teutuls would get back home with their wallets full of cash. After all, the show had experienced enormous success, and it was only sensible that the stars of the show would be rich. For some reason or the other, that didn't quite turn out as the case. No one would expect someone who starred in such an influential and popular show to have their house foreclosed, right? Well, it did happen to Paul Sr., whether you believe it or not. The secret that Paul Sr. hasn't just been having problems with the bank, he's also having big problems with the courts. And yes, that's a problem with an S. Paul, it may seem, has been in a lot of court troubles ever since 2010, and perhaps even before then. According to the February 28 report from Page 6, a man named Thomas Derbyshire accused Teutul of misappropriating funds that he had given Teutul for the sake of rebooting American Chopper. Of course, Teutul denied any wrongdoings in his court filings. According to him, he didn't scam Thomas Derbyshire, and all of this was one huge misunderstanding. That could be true, but this wouldn't be the first case of a fraud case that Paul Sr. would have to beat, and perhaps it's just one too many. But how did Paul Sr. get into debt? That's the very question that no one can seem to answer properly. Thankfully, how he acquired his debt is known to us. According to Page 6's coverage of this development, it was reported that Teutul took out a $1.5 million mortgage for the home on 95 Judson Road in Montgomery, New York in 2005 and modified the loan in 2013 and 2016 to lower his monthly payments. The Orange County Choppers owner owed $870,939.43 on the property as of February 2017. In a bid to pay off all his debts, Paul Sr. admittedly made a lot of sacrifices. For one, he put up the 38-acre estate, about 70 miles north of Manhattan, on the market. However, he recently slashed the price from $2.89 million to $2.49 million. Unfortunately for Paul, all of this wasn't enough, and he eventually had to file for bankruptcy. He filed paperwork claiming that he owes close to 50 creditors $1,070,893.44, and that he was only worth $1,801,729 on February 28th. Interestingly, even Teutul's paperwork showed him to be living above his means. In his filing for bankruptcy, he submitted that he earns $15,070.93 per month, but spends $12,612. When Paul Sr. first fired Paul Jr. from the show, and the latter didn't return in new episodes, everyone was scared that that was it. That's why the fans were really happy when Paul Jr. returned as a contractor. However, this return wasn't out of Paul Sr.'s goodwill. It was despite opposition from Paul Sr. The truth is that the network that had American Choppers at the time had a contract with the Orange County Choppers, and that contract included Paul Sr. sacking Paul Jr. from the shop was in flagrant abuse of that contract, and TLC made sure to give the Orange County Choppers a notice of default. If Jr. hadn't returned to the show, Paul Sr. would have been charged to court and would have ultimately had to pay millions in damages. That's perhaps why the reunion of son and father didn't last long, and they were at each other's throats pretty soon. All this goes to show that while drama can make for great television, it's probably not a great thing to thrive on it. The Teutul family thrived on drama for years and years, and the pressure points eventually blew their family apart. Will the family ever get back together again? The answer is probably not. Some things cannot be fixed. Yes, father and son are on speaking terms right now, but those are certainly the only terms they're on.